now joining Children of the Watch.
That's right. It's the #1 podcast in the galaxy for all things Star Wars television. I'm your host, Alex Maxwell, and joining me, as always, is
Mac Lacey. It's the Book of Boba Fett Chapter 4 breakdown, Alex. This was a fantastic episode. I'm very ready to talk about it. Kind of changing the tone from last week a little bit.
Yes.
I mean, there's tons of details, tons of great character moments in this episode.
Oh my gosh, that tease at the end.
The
tease at the end. I mean, like, how could you not be excited for next week? Like,
right.
As much fun as this week's episode was, it's just like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait until next Wednesday because it's going to be insane.
Yeah. And we'll get into what that spoiler was. If you've watched the episode, you know, but we'll talk about all of that and more when we get into our breakdown.
Yeah. But first, let's do some business. So if you're not following us over on Twitter and Instagram, it's at COTWatch. We have a lot of fun engaging with our fans over there. I just now tweeted out a video of Toro Calican in remembrance of him because we were just so close to seeing him in this episode, and it just made me sad that, we didn't. And so it's a tribute video to Toro. So you can check things. I don't know if that is actually like, oh yeah, I really got to go check out their Instagram and Twitter now.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone is logging off. They're shutting down the episode to go check that out immediately.
It's going to drive them off social media. You can also support us by joining the Patreon, patreon.com/The Mandalorian Watch, which is our former name, and we transitioned our name to Children of the Watch, a Star Wars show to better cover the live-action Star Wars television shows, but we're still the Mandalorian Watch on Patreon, and it's just $2 a month for extra bonus content. So if you enjoy, especially our voicemail hotline episodes, we've got bonus one of those in season for you for just $2 a month, and I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so call us, leave us voicemails.
Yes.
Get that number in the description.
Oh, I cannot wait for the voicemails this week.
Yeah. This coming voicemail episode is going to be great.
The voicemails are just going to be insane. So you can call our voicemail hotline, which is 205-259-6675. And again, like Max said, that will be in the show notes as well in case you didn't catch that. But
in case you're like me and refuse to memorize it.
I always get the first three and the next three mixed sometimes.
They start with twos, yeah.
Yeah, it's
hard.
tough. Yeah, so
if you can figure out how to call the number, please leave us a voicemail. Tell us what you thought. Tell us what's coming next.
Oh, and give us your just unbridled speculation because
yes, we want the nitty gritty. Just take those big swings.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait for the voicemail hotline episode because it's gonna be insane. The wait until next week is just gonna be all time, and I love that though. Like I love having that feeling of like
anticipation.
Oh, is this gonna happen? Yeah. So we should probably just jump in and talk about what that is by starting our breakdown.
Yeah. The first step is to start at the beginning. So
yeah, cool. All right, so this is Chapter 4, The Gathering Storm is what it's titled, and the writer is Jon Favreau once again, and the director is Kevin Tancherian, and he is a Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. director. Like, he did a lot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I believe his wife was also one of the showrunners on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and so he is very familiar with Ming-Na Wen, who was featured on that show, and I think it really kind of shows in this episode.
Yes, I think this is the most subtle performance we've gotten from Ming-Na Wen as Fennec Shand. There's nuance to it, and I mean a lot of it's just we've focused on her in this chapter. So
right,
but there is I think a step up in the direction and the performance that not like she was killing it beforehand. It just took it to the next level this chapter.
Yeah, and she's just more featured, which is nice.
Yeah,
and I had a lot of people either text me or message or even on the Discord, the Patreon Discord, kind of like, okay, now do you trust Fennec? Now do you trust Fennec?
Yeah.
Really, like maybe a little more just because like you have more to work with. Before we didn't have a lot. I mean, like, they were like not featuring her. So now that they're featuring her, it does kind of feel like you can trust her more, but I still feel like you should be on guard a little bit. And I'll explain why in the breakdown.
Yeah, for sure.
If that makes sense. All right, so let's start. Once again, we start off in Boba's chambers as we slowly zoom in on the Bacta-pod, and we flash back to Boba riding his bantha, and he's riding it across the Dune Sea, and he rides past a bantha carcass, and then we swipe to Boba covertly spying down on Jabba's palace, and specifically the garage. And I love that we get to see the garage because this is like a straight pull from Battlefront.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool.
Yeah, kind of fleshing out that part of the map in the on-screen world. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, I love that, like, the episode took the time to carefully, like, he went there first, looked around, and knew he couldn't do this alone, you know?
Right.
So it kind of sets up that need. I think it, like, really explains why he was looking, I think he's looking for someone to partner with, and you know, just stumbles into a partnership with Fennec.
Yes. That's a good way to put it. Weequay and Gamorrean guards patrol outside the open garage gate, and there's plenty of them. And so he returns to his bantha, and he tells it that they won't hit it today, and there's just too many guards for now. And I do love his relationship with animals. Like, I love that's a layer to his character that's carried over from the last episode to this episode. It is really, really nice to see.
Yeah, I just it's a cool little. It's not a obvious choice for an addition to Boba Fett's like personality,
right?
To me, right? It's not. Oh yeah, that dude's an animal lover, but it makes sense with like where he, you know, I think there's a respect he has for animals. Like I think they have a lot of qualities that he wishes more people had.
Ooh,
if that makes sense.
That does make sense because I have dogs, and sometimes I look at my dogs and think the exact same thing. It's like I wish
perfect.
I wish more people were like you.
Fair enough.
So we cut to night, and by the fire, Boba eats under the many moons of Tatooine. And his bantha licks her chops hungrily and wags her tail like a dog. And Boba tosses the meat into her mouth. And as he goes to get more, he sees some flares in the sky. And Mac, we were just so close to getting a Toro appearance in this episode. So, like, what we're seeing in this is actually Chapter 5, the Gunslinger, play out. This is very Back to the Future style type storytelling, right? Like we're seeing it from a different perspective.
It was from a different point of view. It was like reading one of the from a different point of view books, because like, you know, it's a character who was also there, and it's, you know, viewing the events transpire from a different angle. So
man, you are the Obi-Wan Kenobi of this show. I just gotta say, just your
from a certain point of view,
your wittiness and your timing. I love it.
I'll take it.
Boba heads towards the rock outcropping where Fennec lay slumped in the sand from the end of that episode. Now, I do have to say, because I've seen that episode several times, it's up on my wall right here as a piece of art with Toro and Din. So the timeline of that, he had to be traveling a very long time because when Toro shoots Fennec, it's becoming morning after that night. And then you have that scene where Din has to go back into Mos Eisley, and then it's night when he confronts Toro. So it does take a while to get where they're going.
Yeah, she's been laying there for a while.
Yes, right.
She's in bad shape.
She is in very bad shape. And so Boba makes his way towards her body, and it's like pretty much the exact same scene we saw at the end of that episode of The Mandalorian. And it's Fennec. He scoops her up into his arms, and then we cut to black, the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 4, The Gathering Storm, which is a very like good generic title for this episode that feels very like, this sounds like a Star Wars book. I'm pretty sure that is a title of a Star Wars book.
Yeah, no, it does have that feel. I do think it's an apt title for what happens though, because I do think
Yes.
this episode, and we'll talk about the specific moment in which I think this happens, but it marks a departure from the format we've had in the first half, which is this like cutting back and forth from flashback to get the backstory,
Right.
cutting back to present day. I think this is the demarcation. We are officially only in present day.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to be spending time in flashback like we have been, So it is an apt title. This is the conflict. We're actually finally seeing like what this story is shaping up to be,
And like I'm beaming right now. Number one, because I don't like feel the effects of COVID anymore. But then also like I had so much fun watching this episode and just like the setup that this episode did for the rest of the series and potentially other series is just like blowing my mind tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like it's nice to have that feeling again.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so happy. I'm happy to see that big old grin on your face.
So as we enter back into the episode, Boba rides his bantha with Fennec as they approach a singular building, and outside street youths with colorful Vespas are waiting. It's the mods, but not the specific mods we saw from the last episode. So this actually seems to be a movement across the entire planet.
At least planet, if not galaxy at this point.
That would be really interesting. Yeah.
I love it because they're kind of wrapping a bunch of things into this like mod subculture in a galaxy far away, right? I mean, modding is basically the galactic equivalent of tattooing,
right?
And we'll talk about that later. But I mean, like this mod parlor is very much like a tattoo parlor. If anyone has ever like spent time in a tattoo parlor, there's all the hallmarks and everything, all the things you expect. And so, I mean, I like that, modding is like it. So like, there's only a few characters in Star Wars that have tattoos. Darth Maul's one.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that his tattoos are relegated to a more ceremonial thing, a more ritualistic thing, because most, like everybody else who's heavily tattooed in the galaxy, they're functional. So like Dr. Aphra is one of the other characters who I think of as being pretty tattooed, and her tattoos are kind of in line with this modding thing. They're functional, like cybernetic tattoos that she has.
That's a good point.
So like I like that. It's kind of consistent. They've got this kind of little like underground counterculture thing going on in the galaxy. I don't know. I like it. I'm interested to see what else we see of that,
That is really interesting. And in case if you don't know who Dr. Aphra is, she's a character from the comics who's basically like a female Indiana Jones in the Star Wars universe. And she's come across Black Chrysanthemum a lot.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance that we might see her in live action eventually.
Yeah, one of these days. I feel like that's going to come down the pipe.
I think so. I think it will happen.
Yeah.
So one of the mods, he looks like Paul Atreides to me, adjusts his bionic goggles as Boba carries Fennec towards the entrance, and the doors open. There's loud music blaring, and a man with orange dreadlocks modifies a woman's back. And Boba says,
Thundercat.
Thundercat.
Do you know who Thundercat is?
I don't. Who is
so
Thundercat?
he's played by Thundercat. He's like a bassist and vocalist. He's a musician. Like
really?
bass guitar is the thing he's mostly known for. But
like, okay, for a second I was like Thundercats, whoa, like that that kind of Thundercat. But no, he's a musician.
Singular Thundercat is a musician. Yeah,
that's awesome.
He plays the mod artist. I don't know what you would call him, but
yeah. Well, in the audio description, it just said the man with orange dreadlocks.
Gotcha.
Which sounds like a Stephen King character. Boba sets Fennec's body down, and the man with orange dreadlocks turns, asking if he's a little too old to be there, and that there's no walk-ins, appointments only, which does sound like a tattoo parlor type thing. And Boba offers the man money and that her life needs saving. Orange Dread says that he should have started with that and begins giving Fennec her robo tummy.
Yeah.
So
he was not even batting an eye when this man brings an unconscious woman in to get modded.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Is she dead, or is she just so tough she doesn't need anesthesia during this time? Because, like...
I think she's just so unconscious that it doesn't matter. Like, anesthesia would be redundant.
Dang, she's tough.
Yeah.
Because, like,
Fennec is... I'm going to go on record. Fennec is super duper cool in this episode.
Oh, no doubt.
She's always super duper cool, but in this episode, several times I was just like... We are fortunate to have Fennec in a galaxy far away.
We are very fortunate. But think how bad that would hurt. Like having those things connected to like your actual organs too, and like
right.
that would hurt later on too. Like that's sore.
Yeah.
As you live, she's pretty tough.
Yeah, Star Wars has figured out. So I mean, they've got Bacta and everything, but like. They've figured out how to minimize recovery time after surgery for sure. Because you never see any people just like get a new hand and then go, right about their day.
That is true.
So
no physical therapy or anything. They just know how to use it.
Like Luke is just automatically, using his hand super dexterously. So
that is true. That's a great point.
They've figured something out on that. In that regard.
That's good for them.
Yeah, but this sequence was kind of like hard to watch. Honestly, there's like this body horror thing going on with it.
It's not the only time that there's like horror in this episode.
Yeah.
So I like that. The orange dreadlock man declares it's done as she lights up like a Christmas tree, and Boba asks if he's going to close her up, and he says, and cover that beautiful machinery. Boba eyes her.
I also have questions. I'm like, I think they should probably wait for Fennec to wake up and ask her.
Like, what do you want to do, Fennec? Right. Do you want to cover this up, or do you not?
Yeah, this seemed like the proper course of action, but that's not what they decided to do.
No. It would take me probably years to wake up from a surgery like that. So I guess they thought that, we'll just make the decision for her. Boba eyes her and the picture cuts to black, and then she begins to slowly wake up to a fire. There's a lot of campfires in this episode. If I had a alternate title to this episode, there's two. Either it's going to be like campfires or fire in the hole. I think Fire in the Hole, though, would be a great title for this episode.
The Sarlacc coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
would be fitting.
So he's brought her back to the spot where she was before, which I thought was a little strange. Like, I guess maybe wake up exactly where you were shot by Toro Calican is like some comfort of you not freaking out.
Yeah. I don't think there's any world in which I'm not freaking out if I wake up with a belly full of...
I'm half droid now.
Right.
Boba sits against his bantha, popping a black melon and handing it to Fennec, and she asks what happened, and Boba tells her, and that's when she looks down and sees the robo-tummy. She says, "What did you do to me? I brought you to a mod parlor to the outskirts of Mos Eisley," Boba confirms. And Boba urges her to drink the melon. It's going to take some time to get used to, but soon she'll learn to crave it. Then Boba starts his pitch. "You are Master Assassin Fennec Shand of the Mid-Rim," Boba announces. And she questions if she's worth more alive, and Boba confirms that she is. And Fennec says that she can pay double her bounty. But Boba has another option. Fennec wants to know who he is, and he tells her, and she says that Boba is dead, and he agrees that he was left for dead on the sands of Tatooine, like her. Now, I do want to pause
from the teaser.
I do want to pause here and say we still don't really know the backstory of Fennec. Like, why are all these contracts out on her?
Right.
And who was she meeting in Mos Espa? That's important. Like, that is a super important thing.
Right. It's a big missing piece of information that would inform what she would be most likely to do next, So like if this like whatever was going on beforehand, this whole thing could be some exit strategy from that, you know?
Right.
Like and so we don't know what the end game is.
Right.
And so yeah, it's good that you bring some attention to that. We still don't know a lot.
Yeah. Again, in Chapter 5, the Gunslinger of the Mandalorian, she said to Toro she was meeting somebody in Mos Espa.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's important because we know now the importance of Mos Espa in terms of who's in charge and the crime that's going on there. It's, it's still something up, I think.
Something's up. Something is afoot.
She might not betray Boba, but like you said, this was a good out for her for something.
Right.
So he explained where he's been all this time, and he's been with the Tuskens, but they were murdered by Nitko. How do you say it? Is that how you say it? Nitko?
Nitko, yeah, Nikto.
Nikto. Thank you, Nikto. Like Nick.
Yeah,
Nikto.
I think so.
Thank you. I have such trouble with words sometimes.
Look, they're made up. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I won't.
I always just keep it moving. You just move your mouth and hope for the best, you know?
But they were murdered by Nikto speed bikers, and Fennec is taken back by this. She said, speed bikers murdered Tuskens? That's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
That's kind of important, too, I feel like.
I think it is. Yeah.
It's just like she was kind of shocked, like, just like gang members killed Tuskens? That's unlikely.
Right. We didn't see it happen, so it could definitely be a frame job of some kind. It makes me...
I feel like the Pikes were behind it either way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that speeder bike gang is in working for the Pikes, right?
Right.
Or at least in league, it's in some regard. That's the impression I've always had.
Yes.
So I mean, it could have just been retaliation for the train thing,
right?
But we don't see it happen on screen, and anybody could probably replicate that mark as well. So
right, and yes, thank you. Yes,
yeah, because that's the only indication we have.
Right, exactly. So he says, "I want you to help me recover my fire spray gunship." And Fennec sighs and asks where it's at, and he tells her. But then she explains that Bib Fortuna now rules from the palace. So if the ship is his, why not just ask for it back? And Boba says he may not like the answer, and without his armor, he's less persuasive.
Yeah.
I did like that line.
I like that a lot. It said a lot about how Boba kind of operates through the underworld,
Yeah.
So it says a lot about the mental place he's had to live in to make it.
And she says, if I help you, my debt is paid. And then we cut to them.
She says that with such heartbreak. And I love that moment. That's my favorite moment of her performance in this episode. She managed to say that one line while simultaneously kind of giving her enthusiasm for doing this, but also expressing this grief for what just happened to her, right? She just had some wild life-changing decisions made for her, and so I kind of picked up on this sense of grief in the way that she said that, and so I just fantastic performance.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome. So then we cut to them riding back towards Jabba's palace, and back at night, Boba and Fennec assess the situation, and Fennec stares down at her scope and wonders how many guards there are. And Boba doesn't know, so Fennec wants to take a closer look. And so she pulls the butt of her rifle out, and inside is a small little probe droid, which is very handy. I love that.
Yeah, it's the tiniest little probe droid. I love that. It's basically same design as the ones Darth Maul was using in Phantom Menace, right? But just scaled down.
Yeah, it's awesome. Cool. So she activates it, and it shoots towards the shuttle bay as the gate begins to close, and it makes it in just as the door closes, and it floats up through a floor grate and zooms in and out of the hallways of the palace and hides as two Gamorrean guards march through the palace, and it hides as two Weequays walk past, and outside, Boba begins his goodbyes with his bantha. He pets it, and he gives his goodbyes, and Fennec watches on, and it licks Boba, and he says, "Find other banthas. Make baby banthas. Go."
Yeah.
so good.
Cute. I love it.
I think I would like hanging out with Boba Fett.
Yes. like, I think he would be a fun person to be around. Like,
He's got dad jokes.
We're not gonna agree on a lot. We have different worldviews, I feel like, but
yeah.
But I feel like we would also have a lot to talk about, and we would have some very nice banter. There would be jokes that would be had.
Very cordial.
Yeah.
I feel like we could get along if we had to.
Right. Especially because I'm not trying to cross him.
No way. No. No.
Like, my
absolutely not.
Good.
Yeah. Absolutely not. So he declares the bantha now to go make baby banthas. And he pulls out some food and tosses it away as the bantha slowly turns and lumbers after it. And then Fennec questions if now is the time to do this because they might not get the ship. And Boba says, why? Either I get it or I die. Soon you'll be free too. Man, Boba's just all in every time.
Never done anything halfway.
Fennec asks what's next for him. And then Boba lays out the plan. He says, I'm going to find my armor. Then I'm going to kill that bloated pig who double-crossed me, take his throne. Fennec smiles. You want to head a Gatra? Now, I got to pause here because Gatra is not the first time we've heard this in Star Wars. In the EU, there's this thing called the droid Gatra, which was like this droid leader and movement of like freeing droids, and it's not in the EU, it's in Solo. L3 is a part of this. So like this movement to have droids independent and free. And then in chapter 10 of The Mandalorian, the one-eyed alien, I can't remember his name, Gor Koresh.
Yes.
That's it. He says, by the Gatra in one of the statements he says. And so I looked up what Gatra meant because I didn't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I thought it was a made-up Star Wars word.
So. I did too. A Gatra in Hindu culture is considered to be the equivalent of lineage. So I guess the way that it's being used here is kind of like family.
Yeah, just like a crime family. It makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. A lot of times Star Wars use words incorrectly and then like we'll fix it later, kind of like with the parsec.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
But that's just a Star Wars thing. So Fennec asks, you want to head a Gatra? And then they have this back and forth exchange where Boba says he is just tired of working for idiots. And essentially that's what it boils down to. He's tired of dumb people running things.
Yeah. So we've been talking this whole time. We've been like wondering what is the end goal for Boba? Like, is there any larger, loftier goals, like any kind of ulterior motives that he's kept to himself, you know, like particularly pertaining to the Tuskens? If this episode is to be believed, and there's always time for new information, you know, the show is still young, but if this is to be believed, like, Boba's basically just trying to retire. Like, that's really his motivation.
I do think there is something, though, to that whole idea of, like, working and then realizing, like, things could be so much better, so I'm going to make them better.
Yeah.
Now that's also a thing in Star Wars where that's what Anakin thought too. Like things could be so much better, and I'm gonna make them better, and it didn't go well for everyone. No one had a good time. Not a single person. But I'm thinking Boba is on the right track with what he's doing. So from what we've seen now, I want to say in our Patreon voicemail episode, Todd did bring up a good point he said, what crime has Boba committed yet? He's not like being the best crime lord.
Yeah.
And like maybe he's not being the best crime lord, but like I feel like his motives are kind of pure in what he's wanting to do. He just wants to run things with competency. Like he doesn't want people to die unnecessarily.
Yeah. And I mean, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but like he's talking about like Fennec's like, you know, your time with the Tuskens has made you weak. And I think like Boba Fett's truly realized that like the better way to live, it's like it's more beneficial for all parties to make bridges instead of, you know, just coming at stuff with a gun, you know?
Yeah.
Like he's realized that like his true like the potential that lies around him is like his ability to coordinate and make relationships with all these different parties and to kind of arbitrate and all synergize and build something better, you know?
Yeah, that's good. So he goes on and he says, the Tuscans took me in, made me part of their tribe. I was ready to leave hunting behind. And then Fennec counters, people like us don't get to decide when we're finished. That is a very interesting line, and it tells me a lot about Fennec.
Yes. Yeah. It tells me that maybe leaving this life has not been, like, maybe she's thought about that before, you know? And that, like, maybe she's been unable to get out for certain reasons. Maybe, you know, somebody has something on her, or there's, you know, particular forces kind of manipulating her way, which is, you know, ominous for our protagonist here.
Right. It's kind of like a Lando situation. You know, like if a betrayal is coming, I do think it's more like a Lando situation where she doesn't want to do it, but feels like she has to.
Right.
If she is going to do it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking at this point, just based on what she's been saying. So before they continue their discussion, the probe droid returns and Fennec takes it and she activates the holo map of inside the palace, and it's just full of people, too many. And Fennec says they'll time their patrol and go in quiet. And so later they head towards a sewer gate in the dead of night, and Fennec cuts away the grate with some kind of substance, and
it's so cool.
She kicks the grate in, and I bet Din and the others would have found this very useful in the season 1 finale of The Mandalorian.
Yes.
When they could not get that grate open.
Yeah, this stuff is cool. Fennec is like doing some James Bond stuff in this episode. I love it. She's like a super secret agent, you know?
Yeah.
She's got that. She's, you know, I don't know. I just really like getting to see her operate because she's really kind of running the show on this one.
Oh, yeah, no
Boba
doubt.
doesn't, like, he's, and I don't know if it's like, I mean, Boba can't do a ton in this scene. You know, I don't know if he's still healing or like what it is, but like, he basically jumps in the ship, and that's all he does.
Yes. Yeah. Fennec is basically doing it all herself here. Yeah. For sure.
She's amazing. She's incredible.
So they slip into the sewer, and we rise above, I love this scene, to the kitchens as an EV series droid and a chef droid prepares supper. Maybe it's breakfast for the next morning. I'm not sure. The chef droid is just awesome.
Yes.
I need that droid.
When it just like raised like 18 knives up to
amazing,
to fight.
Amazing.
I want to put it in like a, and you know, this is ethically complicated, but put it in like a droid fighting ring and see what it does.
Yeah, L3 might have some words with you about it, but I agree. I do want to see that. Yeah. So Fennec removes the grate, but the two droids hear it and think it's probably just more rats. So that makes me think we got to get a health inspector in their stat. You know, the EV series droid is instructed to find the rat, while the chef droid says he will contact the rat catcher. And before the droid can call security, Boba knocks it down with his gaffy stick. And then the chef droid marches out and does his best General Grievous impression.
Hello there.
with his 6 arms spinning wildly with the knives. I mean, that's immediately where my mind went. It was like, oh, this guy, he's seen some footage of General Grievous before in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, it's like his celebrity idol.
Yeah. And from behind, Fennec cuts the droid's head off. And then Boba and Fennec think they're in the clear to get the ship with no alarms sound. But suddenly they hear something, and so they rush back into the kitchen to hide as an LEP droid enters. And we see these droids a lot in the Clone Wars. This is a droid that we've seen a lot in Star Wars animation. It is really cool to see them in live action. Like, I love this droid.
It's always an interesting, like, the designer's different approaches to adapting something that's primarily animated, you know, and like making it a Because like you got to get across the same design while also removing that stylization and like making that realistic proportions and things like that. So it's always kind of interesting to see.
It's just funny too because like of the way the nature of this episode is at the end, especially we see these droids a lot with Mandalorians.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's on my mind, I guess. But it's really funny. I realized that this is the rat catcher droid. It's got a little net, that's why it's walking into the kitchen is because it's actually there to catch the rat. And that's amazing. Yeah. And so it enters and it looks around confused. And when it turns around, he spots Boba and Fennec yells that she'll watch the door as a scene from The Little Mermaid is reenacted for us. And Boba chases the droid around the kitchen as it runs from him. And this is really like a live-action Clone Wars episode. I personally love it because, like, I keep thinking, like, man, kids would really enjoy, I think, this kind of portion of the episode. Like, I like that. I think that's important for Star Wars because Star Wars should never be, like... I remember that discussion that a lot of people were having that, I can't wait until like an R-rated Star Wars. Like it's not Star Wars anymore. It's Alien. Right. I don't want to watch that.
Yeah. Part of Star Wars is it's for everybody. Like
right.
I don't think it's made for kids. I think it's made for everybody, which includes kids. Like, right. And I think that's its great strength. Like the fact that people from 3 different generations can sit down in a room and all watch this thing together and like all have it as a cultural touchstone, which like things just, that just doesn't happen. Like things don't have as much of a lifespan, as Star Wars has. And, while being such a powerhouse, Right. So, I mean, yeah, it should be for everybody. So like you're saying, like even in this show, which I feel like has been more like tailored towards an older audience, like it's great to remember that there's, everybody's watching. So
yeah, I loved it.
I
thought it was a great sequence. I thought the way that the droid moved, because it kind of looked like it was like a puppet at sometimes, also like claymation at sometimes. Like it reminded me of like classic Star Wars, the way that it moved too.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
I was almost wondering if they were doing some stop animation for the droids. Or something like that. Some puppetry or I'm very interested to see some making of stuff on this show, because there's never before have I not been able to determine what's practical and what's CG,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good place to be.
Yeah. So Fennec cuts off the droid's escape, and Boba picks it up by the neck. And Boba tells the droid who he is, and then smartly, the poor little droid just powers himself down. I don't even want to die. I get it, man. He drops it in a pot.
Sometimes too.
He drops it in a pot, and then they head towards the hangar bay, and then they sneak inside, and the way is seemingly clear for them just to be able to get in and get out, no problem. I do really like the return of Boba's theme from The Mandalorian here. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what that signifies. I wonder if like it just kind of a musical cue to like remind you of like, this is kind of where we're at now in the timeline of like, now we've entered into his time in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to see how they use that in the future,
Yeah. So before they can get in, 2 Gamorrean guards rush in and force Boba and Fennec to hide. And as the guards look around, they jump them from behind and knock them out. But it doesn't matter because the alarm starts going off. And the battle begins as more guards rush in. And Fennec does what she does best while Boba gets inside his ship, starting it up. And Fennec targets a Gonk droid and it explodes, knocking several guards off their feet.
Poor Gonk droid.
I know.
I also never thought about like, oh yeah, they probably would explode. They're just big
they're power
packs.
droids. Yeah. So Fennec is just so good in this whole sequence, and finally Boba gets the ship in the air, and Fennec dives out of the way as Boba powers up the ship to knock some guards out of the way, and Fennec jumps on, but Boba is having a hard time in such a small space, like he's having a hard time moving around because it's so condensed in there, and I feel that way all the time in my own garage, in my car. He's just like us
and everything.
Yeah. He's scraping the nose across the concrete as another guard jumps on the ramp to fight Fennec hand to hand. What an idiot!
Yeah.
Like this guy's an idiot.
Terrible move.
and they just trade body blows, but she's got a robo-tummy, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And as Boba tries to maneuver the ship out, and then in a very video game move, Fennec is able to flip the guard off the ramp. She jumps inside Slave One and then fires at the counterweight just as the ramp closes, and they're able to get out, and they escape into the dawn of the morning. And inside, Fennec climbs up beside Boba and says that next time they stick to the plan. And Boba's like, next time? Wait a second.
Yeah.
So that whole sequence was just very well done, I thought.
Yeah, it was peak, Fennec action. She's just so cool in this whole sequence. I'm like, she I think is now the first call I make in a galaxy far, far away if I have to do something like this,
No doubt.
Um,
if I've got to take over territory on a questionable planet, Fennec's my first call.
Yeah. Yeah.
First call.
If I'm ever called upon to, unseat a democratically elected government on some outer rim planet or something.
You're calling Fennec.
Yep.
Yep, she's coming with you. She's got a lot of cool gadgets, a lot of skills, a lot of knowledge. And so, yeah, I definitely get it. They discuss where they can go to get repairs for the ship, but Boba says that he will handle them himself since there's some advantages to people thinking he's dead.
Yeah.
And then he says that her debt is paid and asks where he should drop her off at. But then she says that she thinks she'll just stick around and just kind of see where this thing goes.
Yeah. I like that.
Like
I mean, what do you think her motivations are here? I think there's a few possible things, and only Fennec knows at this point,
Right.
I think one is that she just sees an opportunity for upward mobility, She agrees with Boba. She's like, yeah, I'm tired of working for idiots too. Let's build something better for ourselves,
I also think she just kind of likes Boba.
Yeah, I also think that too. And I
not
don't
like
mean
in a romantic way.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that'll happen at all. But I think she just respects.
Yeah.
She has kind of her own way of doing things. She, has a different approach to even that mission,
right.
than Boba does. But I think she respects some of those greater qualities that we've seen bubbling up in him in this show.
Right.
And she's kind of bought into that idea, maybe that, yeah, let's try to organize people and work with people instead of working for and against people.
Let's just try this different way and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we wipe to the Kenton Striders cruising the Dune Sea, and behind them, they close in on them, and Boba just takes them by surprise. And again, I like the touch of music here. It's the Mandalorian Boba Fett music. It's like Boba's killing music.
Do you think it's almost the Slave One theme?
Maybe.
Instead of the Boba theme?
It felt like more the Boba theme to me. Okay. I don't know. I would have to go back and listen to it again.
I mean, I'm just thinking
from
they
Empire.
No, I'm just saying
because
Boba's got his kind of own theme from this show, right? And then you've got the Mandalorian theme. I think is kind of just maybe. For the ship.
Well, because that music also kind of I think it plays when he's just destroying stormtroopers in the Tragedy, Chapter 14.
So maybe it's just Boba in action music.
Yeah, it's like his killing music. Like he's gonna kill somebody when that dun 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 that starts playing. You're in trouble.
Gotcha.
If you hear that music, Boba Fett's behind you and he's about to kill you with his gaffy stick.
Terrifying.
So he just annihilates everyone here and then makes his way to the sail barge wreckage where the Sarlacc is. And it's really cool to see, again, kind of this angle of the sail barge disaster as the Major Domo, or not the Major Domo, Lortha Peel said last week, I think. And so he angles the ship directly over the Sarlacc pit because he believes his armor is inside it.
Yeah.
And I forgot that he was
unconscious when the Jawas stripped it from him. Yeah.
So that's why he didn't just kill the Jawas when he saw them a few chapters ago. Like he didn't know that they took it.
Right.
Which is not good for Cobb Vanth. I'm kind of worried about Cobb now because he doesn't realize Cobb didn't take the armor. It was the Jawas that did.
Yeah.
So he believes that the armor's inside and a shadow eclipses the Maw as we get some horror movie vibes here.
Yeah.
And they can't see anything down. He ignites a searchlight to peer through the gloom. It's weird. It's creepy.
And fleshy. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I think I really like about this scene is that it kind of works for the people who don't like the special edition stuff. Like,
right. Because you have the original look of the Sarlacc at first. Right. It's just the pit. It's just the hole in the ground with a few teeth.
Yeah.
And then inside is the CG part, kind of the mouth, the maw.
Yeah.
You know.
I thought that was cool. Is it like a kind of a good, like, I guess from a certain point of view, the Sarlacc is what you view it as.
Well, it's just like if you like, you know, get hung up on those kind of changes and stuff. And I'm one that I think there's plenty of very silly changes from the the special editions and stuff. But like if you get really hung up on that, it's kind of just like a moment to be like, hey, like we see you, we know, you know.
Right. I do love the fun jump scare here. The beak from the special edition jumps forth and the tentacles latch around the ship. And I didn't realize, I guess, how strong a Sarlacc is, but it's super strong.
Yeah.
And Boba tries to shoot it, but it's much stronger than we realize. And a light blinks above them in the cockpit. And Fennec spots it, but she can't reach it. And then so she detaches from the seat and falls against the window as the beak tries to attack her.
Yeah.
And she finally is able to press the button, and a seismic charge just rolls out and falls into the Sarlacc's mouth. And that was a really cool... I mean, anytime a seismic charge is used, it's a good day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you love to hear the... I think it's cool that this is kind of... Like Boba Fett says, he's like, I've got some scores to settle.
That's
in
one
this
of them.
episode, he pretty much wraps everything up. You've got the speeder bike gang,
except for the Pikes, I guess. Yeah.
But I don't know that he knows for sure what those connections are and everything. So maybe that comes up later. But you've got the speeder bike gang. You've got the Sarlacc. He's getting revenge on the thing that basically killed him.
That's true.
It's interesting. And then Bib, we also get that. So,
Fennec yells the alternate title to this episode. She yells, "Fire in the hole!" And the Sarlacc is slayed. The seismic charge goes off, and finally, Boba can move back. And I do love this. He says, "Next time, don't touch my buttons." Like, Boba, come on, dude.
It's funny. Like, she just saved you. Like,
yeah, I know.
What are you talking about?
But I mean, I get it though. It's like that's his special move. The seismic charge is like. I
wanted to do the seismic charge.
Right, exactly.
A finishing combo.
Yeah, it's like his wrestler move.
Yeah.
We cut to Boba climbing out of the Sarlacc, and there's just goo all over him. And he says that his armor is not inside. And Fennec says that his armor served its purpose. It saved him from the acids, and what he really needs is a Bacta tank.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure I say that right so I don't get another 1-star review on the podcast. Then we cut to night, and it's another campfire. Boba loves camping.
Yep.
Boba offers her some scurrier food, and she takes it.
I mean, that's just like a little animal that he just killed and cooked, right?
Yeah, it's like one of those little. It looks like a little kangaroo.
Yeah, it's like a kangaroo mouse.
Yeah. Yeah. And so she sits and she asks, are you serious about forming your own house? And I love just like their interchangeable terms here.
Yep.
Gotcha, house.
Yep.
What is this? Nobody knows.
I think the point is that it's in space and made up.
It's real, Mac. It's real.
It's awesome.
It's like that movie, Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's actually, never mind. Boba.
When John Boyega asked Harrison Ford, or maybe it was Oscar Isaac, I can't remember, but one of them, when they were doing the sequels, asked Harrison Ford for tips on how to fly like a ship in a galaxy far, far away. They're like, how do you make it real? He's like, well, you just pull some levers and press buttons and remember that it's all made up. None of it's real. And then you're like, all right, makes sense. I got it. I think
Harrison.
I think a healthy dose of this is all made up and it's just for fun is needed.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Because if you get so like uptight about stuff like this, it's gonna drive you crazy. Yeah. You know, just enjoy it, and if you don't, that's okay because Obi-Wan Kenobi's coming out soon.
There you go.
So there you go.
I just made a terrible noise. I'm sure. I'm sorry, everybody.
It's all right. Boba replies, "How many times have you been hired to do a job that was avoidable? If they only took time to think, how much money could have been made? How many lives could have been saved?" And then Fennec counters, "Then you and I would be out of work." And then he goes on to say, "I'm tired of our kind dying because of the idiocy of others. We're smarter than them. It's time we took our shot." And Fennec says that, she says with a smile, and Boba continues, "Yes, if I'm going to start a house, I need brains and muscle. You have both." And she says, "It's tempting, but I'm an independent contractor. I'll do jobs for you, but I value my freedom." Yep. Again, that's like another nice layer to Fennec that can't necessarily put her off the suspect list of potential betrayal, but it is nice to hear these things and kind of get like an idea of who she is as a person.
I'm sure Fennec will be our main top. Well, there's going to be, I think, two main topics of after breakdown discussion for this chapter. I think Fennec will be one of those. So we'll talk about that in more broad strokes, kind of, where we're, where all that sits, where the Fennec question sits.
Right. So Boba then goes on to say he can offer her something that no client ever has: loyalty. Yeah. And Fennec stops eating, gives him a look, and Boba promises her to give like a cut of what he has and pledges his life to protect hers. And then Fennec shifts her gaze, and then she says, "Living with the Tuskens has made you soft." Yeah. And I don't think Fennec has completely changed her mind in the present day on this topic. I think she's still kind of in this headspace.
Right.
Boba says, "No, it's made me strong. You can only get so far without a tribe." I think that's the best line of the series so far. I love that line. It's this whole sequence actually reminds me a lot of the very similar scene in Solo where they're sitting around a campfire and Han Solo is listening to Chewbacca, and Chewie basically says that he's either looking for his family or his tribe, and Han doesn't know which is which. And then Woody Harrelson's character says, "What's the difference?"
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. And I think that can kind of be a thesis statement almost for this show. I think that kind of everything that we're getting at here is kind of encapsulated in that statement, you know? It's this is the process of Boba learning how to not live as a solitary creature, you know, and leverage, potential relationships around him to build something better.
And maybe he saw, like, not only did he learn that lesson from the Tuskens, but maybe he's also learning it from the way his dad operated. Like, the way that his dad operated, like, he had associates like Zam Wessel, which is like his Fennec Shand, but he killed her when he didn't need her anymore. Like, everyone was just kind of like, except Boba, who cares? Like, his allegiance was to no one but Boba and himself. Right. And maybe Boba's kind of realizing that's going to get me killed like it did him. if I keep on that path.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
So we flash back to the pod just to kind of reestablish, oh yeah, he's in that. And then back to the end credit scene of The Mandalorian Season 2. Then Boba is finished with both the Bacta and the flashbacks, which is very convenient for all of us. I guess. So it's like he was only having those flashbacks in the Bacta in chronological order for our benefit. Thank you, Boba.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you for organizing your dreams for us. Yeah. No, I think that you are, completely fully healed line indicates we're not going back to flashback. At least not to the time of post Sarlacc this show,
If they do, it's not going to be like it has been. It's going to be very quick, I think.
Yep.
Not like whole episodes. I think we're done with the flashbacks pretty much.
Yeah, and I think we're done with that time period. I think if we do any more flashbacks, we're probably going back to maybe stuff with Jango.
Yeah.
Or even like the kind of the interim times we don't know much about,
Right.
And I agree with you. It'll be much quicker. We're not going to spend half to 3/4 of an episode in the flashback time.
And honestly, like that's kind of exciting because it's like, what's gonna happen? Like now everything is set up from this episode. It is truly the storm has gathered.
Yeah. And I mean, like,
and it's the gathering storm.
I do feel like, so it did take this show, I feel like 4 episodes for me to get a good sense of what, like,
which
the
is a little
back
too
half
long
of the show is going to even be about, which that might be a little too long. But there's plenty of stuff that I enjoyed otherwise in these episodes leading up to it that have, kept me here, kept me watching. So,
right. So he's finished with the Bacta, and then Fennec enters and asks about the scars that are on the inside.
Yeah.
And Boba says that'll take a little more time. And then Boba asks about the interrogations of the Major Domo. Mm-hmm. And Fennec says that he is singing like a Yizm, but no information on the mayor yet. And then Fennec tells him to relax because the mods are combing the streets, and if the mayor is out there, they're going to find him. But Boba wants to show his face, and Fennec isn't so sure since war could break out at any time. But Boba says power hates a vacuum. And you know what else hates a vacuum, Mac? My dog.
I was like, a dirty floor. I don't know. Where are you going with this?
Yeah.
It makes sense. Dogs do hate vacuums.
Yeah. So then we cut to the sanctuary, and at one of the tables, a group of Trandoshans are playing cards, and sitting in a booth across from them, Chrysanthemum watches angrily. Yeah. Now, I gotta say, one of the reasons this happens, and it's very cool that we're seeing this kind of played out. It's building to the overall Star Wars lore and narrative. Wookiees and Trandoshans have a very long, not so good history with each other. Yeah. They do not get along at all. They have a very long history of violence and slavery between these two groups.
Right.
And a lot of times Trandoshans will enslave Wookiees, hunt them. Trandoshans and Wookiees absolutely do not get along.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think for a casual viewer, this scene it's not set up well.
No.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you don't know, if you're just turning this show on, this is the first time you've engaged with Star Wars. And I do think that media has to stand up on its own like that.
Yes.
Because you never know who's tuning in for the first time. Like,
yep.
And I want everybody's, experience to be as good as mine was,
like even just a subtle thing, like they not even like have to say anything. The Trandoshan could have been wearing like a Wookiee pelt.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
it could have been super, and like one side comment, could have been
sure.
done the job too. But I think I like a visual, motif there better. Yeah, it would have been easier, but it just kind of came out of nowhere. So if you
if you're not familiar, you're like,
that,
what the heck is Chrysanthemum? Like, why is he just beating up these people?
Right.
Well, it's because he doesn't like Trandoshans. That's really it. And they were having fun. and he was drinking, and he was angry, and drinking while you're angry, probably not a good combo. And he makes a fist, and electricity arcs across his brass knuckles, and he's had enough. They're simply having way too much fun. And so he goes and he fights them as Boba enters, and he watches from the entrance. And he has one last Trandoshan left when Garsa Fwip intercedes. And Garsa strokes his ego, talking about what an amazing gladiator he was. And she is really buttering him up. And Boba watches her impressed. And this made me think, Mac, is she going to be his next major domo?
Yes, I'm right there with you. She is doing the very thing that Boba has been talking about this whole time. She's doing it. She's taking an alternative approach to just brute force confrontation. She's using the resources and her craftiness, instead of to try to resolve the situation. I think Boba Fett sees that. He sees that like level approach to the situation, and kind of sees something of what he's trying to do in that. So I think she really earned a lot of Boba's respect in this scene.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. I mean, she's like, Jennifer
really
Beals plays her so well.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed, she's just a great addition to the show.
I mean, I don't know, like people might be like, oh, how could you say this? She would have done a kind of a good job, I think, of playing a live action Hera. Just like with this delivery, the way she talked to Chrysanthemum reminded me a lot of Hera Syndulla, the way she kind of like calmed things down.
Right. That comforting and like welcoming tone, but that has that command behind it, that authority that Hera has.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Mom
I
vibes.
agree.
Yeah, she did a really good job in this scene. And so she gives BK an offer here. He's accrued debt with her, and if he lets this poor Trandoshan go, she will wipe his debt clean. So you got a way out here. Yep. And so just when we think he's going to let this Trandoshan go, he rips an arm out, and the people gasp in horror as the Trandoshan withers on the ground. And Boba tells Garsa it was worth a shot, and she kind of like makes a face at him. And then Max Rebo drops that base inside, and then outside Chrysanthemum is confronted by Boba, and he offers Chrysanthemum a job.
I wanted to contribute my alternative title for this episode, which is Hit It Max.
Hit it, Max.
That is my new catchphrase. Hit it, Max, and then
that's the name of your next band.
I think so.
Hit it, Max. I love that.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're not interrupting. This is your podcast too. So yeah, he offers Chrysanthemum a job here, and we pretty much speculated that last week of like the reason he lets Chrysanthemum live is because Chrysanthemum's going to end up working for Boba, and we kind of saw that coming, I think. Yeah, and we cut to the crime family meeting inside the palace. There's the Klatooians, the Aqualish, and the Trandoshans. They all have a seat at the table.
Yep.
Godfather-type music was playing.
Mm-hmm.
Fennec explains how they've all left the family when Jabba died. Basically, they can get rich again if they all listen to Boba Fett, and Boba says he doesn't want to have any tributes from them. Instead, he just has this proposal. And he says this: as I am sure you all know, the Pike Syndicate are mustering troops in Mos Espa. They have slowly absorbed our planet as part of their spice trade. They have bribed the mayor and are draining Tatooine of its wealth. And they begin asking why he should be their leader. What keeps them from killing him? And then the Rancor reaches its claws up from beneath. Very cool scene.
Yeah.
It's very handy to have a Rancor because now they're all properly scared.
Yep.
I need one in my classroom. I need a Rancor in my
when the
classroom.
kids start acting up, just have some claws come up from the floor.
That'd be nice.
Better act right.
Boba asks them all to sit again, and the Klatooian ask why they should fight when the problem seems to be just between Boba and the Pikes. Like, why should they get involved at all? Boba fed up just stands up and says, okay, I'm just going to do it myself then, but I'm going to ask you one thing. If I'm going to fight them, I want you guys to remain neutral. If they come to you at all, do not offer them help. Do not help them. They all kind of quietly talk amongst themselves and basically say, sure, yeah, we'll do that. They all
That's
share.
100% never happening, right? That's
not at all.
100% not going to happen.
They're all going to be against him.
Yeah, they're all joining up with the Pikes.
Yeah. It's confirmed when they share the toast, and they're all agreeing, and Fennec gives Boba an uneasy look, and they just kind of share this look. I like this scene. It's very Game of Thrones to me. Like, I know a lot of people will say like Godfather or The Sopranos. To me, this was like Cersei bringing the houses together and like having a plan. Maybe not Cersei, but like a main character basically saying like, listen, be on my side.
Daenerys would be a good.
Yes, Daenerys is a good. Yes, Daenerys is
she had
a
to
good.
make a bunch of alliances and stuff. So
yeah, and you can trust none of these people. Yeah. Don't trust these people. That's and Fennec is like her Jorah.
There you go.
There we go. And from the top of the palace, Boba and Fennec watches the crime families walk away. And above, Fennec asks, do you trust them? And he says, I trust them to work in their own self-interest. My deal is better than what the syndicate would offer. They may be stubborn, but they're not foolish enough to see that the Pikes would eventually take over the whole planet. Either way, we must prepare for war.
But wasn't he just talking about how he always had to work for idiots? I feel like that includes them. I feel like they're not going to be able to actually tell what their own self-interest is going to be.
That is true. They're going to totally work for the Pikes. Like, I feel like that is confirmed. I would be more shocked if they don't.
If we just never saw them again.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. This dealt with it. All right.
Yeah, I'd be more shocked by that.
Yeah.
Then Fennec asks, how much treasure do we have in the reserves? And Boba says, I have plenty of credits. What I'm short on is muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Fennec says, credits can buy muscle if you know where to look. And Boba ponders this as the Mandalorian's music plays. By God, it's Din! It's Din!
He's coming next
Din
episode,
is coming.
I feel like.
I'm trying to do my best JR wrestling impersonation. Stone Cold! Stone Cold!
Yeah, we are getting the Mandalorian himself.
Oh, Din's showing up.
Yeah, there's no way. Cause
you don't play his music and then he doesn't show up.
It was so pointed, you know? They were like, hey, everybody, look what music we're playing as we take this nice beat to zoom out on Jabba's palace. You know?
Do you know what that means, Mac?
What does it mean, Alex?
It means we will get, like, okay, so a lot of people were saying before this show came out, this is going to be like The Mandalorian season 2.5.
Uh-huh. And this is the first time that it's even felt close to being in that realm.
It is not at all. Like, I feel like for the most part, you could probably skip this show and not miss out in terms of like the Mandalorian storyline. Not anymore, Mac. Not anymore.
Yep.
You gotta watch this because Din is coming. And what I am so excited about, you could probably hear it in my voice. What I am so excited about is because then it's going to tell us something major about season 3 of The Mandalorian that I cannot wait for. Is Din the Mandalore? Is he still carrying the Darksaber? If he's not, that tells us a lot. Who he brings potentially with him tells us a lot.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, there's so many scenarios here that we'll be able to say, is he going to use the spear? Is he going to use the Darksaber? Are there going to be others with him?
It's all great questions. I don't know. There's so many different ways it could be. Like, I mean, they could seriously just be hiring him as a bounty hunter.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And it could just be him.
I don't think it's just him.
I don't think so either. I mean, muscle implies you need a few different people, right?
I mean, Din would do.
Right.
Let's be clear. Din would do.
Well, I don't know. They got a tall order ahead of him. Din didn't do a whole lot on his own in the show. He had help as well. But yeah, he could just be like a bounty hunter. He could also, if he is like Mandalore or something, they could be brokering. They could be like renting out a Mandalorian army.
But here's the thing, though. This is just now hitting me. Almost all the players of the Shadow Collective will be here for the war.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you've got, like, Death Watch, kind of. Sort of. Unclear on how that's all exactly related, but at least in the same, same circle. And then you'll have the Pikes showing up.
The Pikes.
Well, Black Sun's missing.
And then Crimson Dawn is missing. And if the Hutts actually...
I don't think Crimson Dawn's going to be missing for long, but...
If the Hutts actually left, I don't think they did. I think they're still going to be there.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And again, if you don't know what the Shadow Collective is, it's basically in the Clone Wars, Darth Maul came back, and his way of kind of taking over the galaxy is he formed a group of underworld syndicates, and he brought them all together with the Mandalorian Death Watch movement. And there's probably a connection between Death Watch and Children of the Watch, which is Din's group. And that's another thing. If he does bring other people, it will tell me a lot if he brings Bo-Katan.
Yes.
If he doesn't bring Bo-Katan, it will tell me a lot if he doesn't bring Bo-Katan.
Right.
What if the Armorer showed up? What if she's with him? Or Paz Vizsla?
Yep.
I mean...
the Armorer would be my number one pick to show up. I would actually prefer her show up than, like, Bo-Katan.
Oh, no doubt. I would love to see her again.
I want to learn more about the Armorer, and like we already know a lot about Bo-Katan. You know, she showed up in several other shows, but have the Armorer show up because like her calendar is clear. Like she doesn't exactly have a covert to be leading, and you know I'm sure not many people are bringing her Beskar to forge into armor. So I think she's got the flexibility in her schedule.
And speaking of the Armorer, we actually interviewed the actress who played her, Emily Swallows.
We did.
You can find that on the podcast. Just scroll down and you'll find it eventually. It was really fun interview.
Fantastic
She's awesome.
Interview. Yeah, she was great. Just so fun to talk to.
It was like a year ago exactly that we interviewed her.
Wow.
So it was a lot of fun. I hope. I can't wait. Like if it is just Din, I'm happy because it's Din and it's going to tell us a lot. It's going to inform a lot about where we're going for season 3 of The Mandalorian. But if you bring some people with him, that's also going to say a lot. And then just thinking about seeing them in action. I could foresee, Mac, a scenario where they actually beat the Pike Syndicate and Din and his allies, if like maybe even Bosk or Dengar show up to like help Boba or whatever. Former members of Krait's Claw, which was Boba's like... When he was young, he formed like a little syndicate full of bounty hunters we all know and love. Mm-hmm. If they showed up, maybe I could foresee a scenario where they actually beat the Pike Syndicate and all of his allies leave, and then the person who is actually in charge shows up. You know what I'm saying? Like I could foresee a scenario like that, or it's just one huge battle in the finale with all these different forces fighting on Tatooine, which is just going to be incredible.
Yeah. It is certainly shaping up to be a big old back half of the season. I think things are only going to get more like engaging from here.
Yes.
I think we're only going to be seeing more big reveals, more tie-ins, other stuff. Like it's just going to keep getting bigger from here, you know?
Yeah. And I think, you know, a lot of people who maybe have been like, I don't know about this show. It's not as good as The Mandalorian. Well, guess what? He's here now. So let's, you know, like I just like, I love the positive momentum. This is why it's just been like smiling ear to ear this whole time, is because like, I can't wait for next week. Now there's a possibility Din doesn't show up next week exactly, right. But I think he is. I think he's going to show up.
I don't think they would have played the theme if it wasn't like, right. And next week on the Book of Boba Fett, you know? But there's definitely a possibility it could be, you know, a couple episodes from now or, you know, whatever. I think Ahsoka, they mentioned going to see a Jedi a couple episodes before she actually showed up, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it could be another situation like that, but.
So Bryce Dallas Howard will be doing the next episode for sure. That is confirmed.
Cool.
Then
there was a lot of confusion with this episode.
Yeah.
It was going back and forth a lot.
sure.
Like IMDb had Bryce Dallas Howard
I think
listed.
it still does. For
Maybe.
this one, which, that is not right. So that means Dave Filoni would be doing the 6th episode, which that one's going to be incredible. I would expect some more surprises in that. Probably the bad guys bringing their people in.
Yep. One particular Duros bounty hunter.
Yeah, I think that's when he shows up. Yep. I think that's when he shows up. And then the finale, I think, would be Robert Rodriguez again. And I think that's just going to be a big fight, big romp, which that's what he's best at. So I can't wait. I think the next 3 weeks are going to be a lot of fun. And I can't wait to hear what people think. Like, I can't wait to hear what you guys think about who's coming. Is Den bringing friends?
Yeah.
I don't think he's bringing Grogu. I don't think Luke and Grogu are showing up at all.
How wild would that be? Like, just how
super wild.
That would get unhinged.
It would be so off the rails. Like, I would love it, and I think people would hate it. You know, like. But I would love it. But I want to hear what people think. So make sure you call into the voicemail hotline this week.
Sure.
And again, if you don't make it onto the voicemail hotline, either one of two things have happened. You're on the Patreon voicemail hotline and you just don't know because you're not on the Patreon, which is $2 a month. Or we get hundreds voicemails. So we can't, we try our best to make sure we're not always doing the same people every time, so more people get a chance to give their thoughts and stuff. So if you don't get on, keep trying. There's a good chance you're gonna get on eventually, because we've got a lot of Star Wars to cover the rest of the year. This is just the beginning, and so I can't wait. I had a lot of fun watching this episode. I hope that you did too.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there is so many great things coming our way. And we will talk about it all next week. But until then, hit it, Max.